biggest predictor of successfully finishing college. And these people who come to school and just show up, this is what I did when I first went back, which was I think the second time I flunked out, is that I would go to class and then I would leave the campus. I didn't get to know people there. They didn't have anything like this going on. And if you can find something to become part of, whether it's like these kids out here who are ice skating, you know, one way or another to become part of the place beyond just class, I think that's crucial, truly crucial. And I assume that all of you veterans here are trying to do that by being here today, in a sense. So I would certainly emphasize that. And then as far as the university, you mentioned the small group thing, Peter. At the medical school, they have, for about 10 years now, they've instituted this thing where the medical students meet in groups of like 3 or 4 with some faculty member whose job is to talk to them about the experience and process it and just add an additional dimension to managing it that's not just talking at people. It's more of an interactive thing that's set up. I'd like to see something like that available to all veterans. If you go to the Vet Center and you're just trying to learn how to integrate into society, that's what you do, is you show up and you sit in a rap group with other veterans. And I feel like something like that that involves both halves of this equation would help enormously on campus. Also, one of the things that's in your pledge is having a single point of contact. I think that's a very good idea. Some place on campus that you go to and find out about all these other opportunities. I'm going to throw in one additional personal story here just because you talked about using the GI Bill and stuff. I saved my GI Bill. I worked and put myself through college after I came back. I said I flunked out. I am probably, I'll bet you that I have the worst academic record of any full professor at Northwestern. I flunked out several times, and I have 60 hours of Fs on my transcript. And to graduate from college, I had to make 60 hours of A's. My final 60 hours were all A's, just to balance the F's, so that I got a C average. And I graduated with a C average, Phi Beta Kappa. And when I came to Northwestern, I had been working to get through school, all that. And I was 31 when I graduated from college. And I came up here and interviewed and got into a very difficult program to get into down at the medical school, PhD program. And then they bounced me from the graduate school because my grades were so bad. Anyway, I managed to get in, and then I was going to finally use my veterans benefits, you know, so that I could just go home and study every night. And I signed up. I started school in '78 while I was discharged from the Marine Corps in September of '68, and it was 10 years and a week later that I started graduate school. And guess what the limit was on using your veterans benefits?
10 years exactly.
So 10 years, so I had to go out and get a job. So I worked in the emergency room while I was going through graduate school for 6 years. And then, right after I graduated, they changed the law and they extended the benefits for Vietnam. I didn't get to use a bit of it.
Resiliency.
Resiliency, that's right.
Well, that's great. So I think the takeaway, if I may sort of summarize, is that a single point is going to be able to provide that type of information and those access to those resources that you may not know are available.
And keep people from getting lost in the big picture.
Yeah, so Rodrigo, I know you've got, you know, just an immense amount of experience, but if you could give me, I mean, we'll take your recommendations in paper, if you will. So consider yourself being subpoenaed to the House of Representatives, and we'll take your comments in writing. But give us, if there's 3 things that the university could do, right, in terms of advice that the university could do that is essential to ensuring successful outcomes for the veterans that are here, and not just the veterans, but then just the community in general, what we've been talking about. I'm going to limit you to 3. So what are those 3 things?
Wow. Okay. You're going to have to give me a couple seconds here.
Could you maybe stand up and balance in your seat while you come up with
Yeah.
Well, let me, before I give you the 3, let me preface this. Back in the 1940s, when they passed a legislation known as the World War II GI Bill of Rights, which was all-encompassing. It provided, well, the president of the University of Chicago, our neighbors down on the south side, he commented that educational institutions, or that education in itself, was not a device to cope with mass unemployment. And that educational institutions would be turned into educational hobo jungles. And veterans, unable to do anything about that, would fail, essentially. Soon thereafter, we saw approximately, and I'm not going to quote you specific numbers, but it's something like a couple 100,000 doctors, 100,000 engineers, 75,000 scientists, like 150,000 teachers, and like 1 million other college-educated veterans. And it provided a 7-to-1 return of investment. That means it provided. It was one of the many reasons why we had this huge economic success through it after World War II. So if we empower them and we give them the tools, we definitely can succeed. Now the three, and I know these are without any attention to any budgetary or other practical matters. I understand in academia, so I'm just going to give them if they were a wish list. Number one, it would have to be a veteran coordinator of sorts, that one point of contact that is dedicated just to helping those veterans transition, not certifying benefits, not doing financial aid, but strictly being a case manager, helping them connect with other community-based organizations, helping them connect with other school-based resources, and then set them up with academic counseling, et cetera, et cetera. The second would be an orientation, actually. It doesn't have to be a week-long class. It could be just 2 to 3 hours after your first orientation, your basic orientation, or 2 to 3 hours before the orientation, and talking to them about connecting them with a plethora of resources. There's a significant amount of resources out there. It is estimated that over 10,000 organizations across the nation have began a program or have started from scratch and are offering specific veteran programs. I could tell you that at Student Veterans of America, we have like corporate entities knocking down at our door for what they are calling the most prized asset, which is the educated veteran. We have sessions with Google, J.P. Morgan Chase, PNC Bank, Deloitte. You have all kinds of Fortune 100 companies that want military veterans, and they sometimes cannot find them. And the best way for organizations to find you is to become involved and to go through some of these orientation classes. And then number three, I'll just make it very broad, is the establishment of administrative policies that help those veterans that choose to come to Northwestern to continue to come to Northwestern and not drop out because they are getting activated or because they have drill on the weekends or or maybe they have to go to their VA medical center once a week for their class, maybe their group therapy session for PTSD, and they maybe that goes along his policy, but maybe they're a few minutes late. But
not to his class.
Not to his class. So it's about administrative policies that promote not only the retention but the graduation of student veterans. Those are the three.
So if we had all three of Rodrigo's to the other three, what would you, assuming we had those three, what's the fourth one? Is that sufficient? Is that, I mean, I know it's a good start, and we know it's not sufficient. So other than those three, just to recap, a veterans coordinator program of such, whether that's an Office of Veteran Affairs type of deal or a single point of contact, if you will. An orientation program that opens up the doors and windows to opportunity, and administrative policies that ensure positive outcomes for our veterans. I think that summarizes.
Can I add one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because these are all things about helping the veteran. I think there needs to be some kind of policies to help the students in the school to understand the veterans, and that could be events where they interact, or it could be classes, it could be I mean, literally a class on this, on what we're talking about today, or it could be just parts of other kinds of classes, but something that helps the campus, the students on the campus. You know, if they don't know they can walk up and introduce themselves and talk to these people, then they can exist amongst us without ever being part of us.
So maybe like a campus veterans awareness program of some, I mean, just,
Yes,
to,
no,
just
that would-
try to
that's-
articulate
Yeah,
it.
no, that's a good way to say it.
Anyone else? If not, I mean, I'm happy to move along. All right. let's
How
move
about
on.
one?
Go ahead.
One random thought, probably hard to do. Northwestern has a one book.
Yes.
What if it were one book that had military characters? What if it were David Finkel's The Good Soldiers, for instance, or something like that that got a conversation going? Now, of course,
Yeah.
that would only happen once, and if
Mhm.
it happened at all, and it was
Mhm.
one class, but just something that, as you know, Don says, kind of breaks down those
Sure.
walls.
And there's
Gets
a
that
great
conversation
number
going, so the
of
caricatures kind of
Yeah.
start to fall away.
There's a great number of literature, novels that are coming out right now on the modern experience. They're out there and they're being published, and that's a really, I think that's a great idea. Thank
So
you for sharing
one
that.
thing, no coincidence, and this goes off Professor Slevin's kind of comment earlier. First case study here at Northwestern was that I received, and it was random. The case